Welcome to the lABLEd podcast, a show about disability, illness and difference. I'm Lucy.
And I'm Alice.
And that's Lola.
Kaleidoscope identity, and this is who I'm meant to be. I'm just labelled me. I'm just labelled me.
Don't forget, in this episode, I might swear, Lucy might cry, and you can check out details of the trigger warnings on our website.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the lABLEd podcast. If you don't know already, my name is Lucy, and I'm here with Alice. Hello, Alice.
Hello, Lucy.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
Good.
How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, I'm quite cold.
I was going to say, it's getting distinctively cold, and I do not like it.
No. I would have quite liked somebody to put the heating on, but apparently we're not doing that yet. So I just have to sit here and my teeth chatter.
Yes, we've had that conversation. When I was at school, when I went to an all-girls school when we lived in North London, my teachers, you were not allowed to wear trousers. Like
what?
So we had a school uniform, and you had to wear a skirt between the months of May and October, like end of October. No matter how cold it was, you could not turn up to school until like after the October bank holiday in trousers.
Could you wear like thermal tights?
You could wear thermal tights, but have you tried, wading through the snow in thermal? It's just
listen, babe. Listen, right? Have you ever seen somebody who can't stand up try and get in a pair of tights? It takes three people to get me in tights, so we don't bother. Really, to be fair. No.
To be fair, I am wearing tights today and regretting every minute of it.
Exactly.
So they are the work of the devil.
They are, yes.
But whether you can walk or not. So
3 people to get you in tights is ridiculous and quite embarrassing, really.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I wonder if our guests ever had call to wear.
I don't know.
Tights.
So our guest today is Mik Scarlett. We're very excited about this episode, aren't we, Alice?
We are a bit excited. Yeah.
Yeah. We're I'm just warning you now, Mik. We might be fangirling over you in about 15 minutes. Go on.
He says sitting here quietly, not joining in the tights conversation.
So it's lovely to have you, Mik. How are you?
It's lovely to be here. I'm very well, thank you. And yes, I have worn tights because it's a builder's trick to wear thermal tights under your trousers in winter to keep you warm. I was taught that by my father when I was quite young. It was also quite handy because I used to wear a caliper on my right leg, and it also meant the caliper didn't rub against it. So I was going to school in tights. Long before we had all this gender stuff, I was there challenging, and it did make getting changed for PE an interesting experience. Why is the crippled kid wearing tights? I don't know. I'm not sure why we want to beat him up, but we want to beat him up.
It's just we've got a new reason now.
Unfortunately, they learned they should never try that because never pick on the kid whose leg is made of metal.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you were talking about calipers. I was like. I'm not sure I'd want to pick a fight with somebody with a pair of calipers.
They all learn quite quickly. I was very clever. What I would do is pick on them so they'd be bullying me. This will pick on Mik, and then I'd wait till whoever was the leader was on their own, and then I'd kick them with it in the bits that boys don't like being kicked in.
Yeah.
And I'd say if you do it again, I'll do that in public. So you'll be beaten up by the cripple kid, and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't do that." So no one ever tried it again. The only kid that ever tried it was a guy called Trevor, who appeared on Swap Shop, right, for collecting things that were free. Because he just wouldn't pay, and he had this huge collection of just crap that was free
stuff, and
he was the only one, and that was because I kind of felt a bit bad about kicking Trevor because he was sort of a little bit more worse off than I was, shall we say. So and he beat the living poo out of me, and I was like, all right, respect. You've done to me what all the other kids I've done to them. I wasn't bullying him, but I think he just tried to be a bit big. I'll pick on Mik. No one picks on Mik. Why don't people pick on Mik?
My mum tells a story. My mum is in her 70s now. I won't give you her exact age. She would not appreciate that.
Yeah.
And she tells this story about how she still feels really terribly guilty because when she was in primary school, there was a girl who had calipers because she had polio. And my mum pushed her over.
Oh,
and
no.
She broke her leg.
Oh,
and my mum she tells the story and she always says, and I feel so terrible about it. It was so, it was just a kid. But then I got her to talk about it a bit more once and actually go into the story a little bit. And I was like, what? Why did you push her over? And she was like, oh, she was a bitch.
There you go. Right. Now, Alice, have I ever told you the story about when I broke somebody's arm in hockey?
I thought you were going to say, have I ever told that story when a woman at school pushed me over and broke my leg? And I was like, hang on a minute, Lucy, you're not that old, are you?
I broke a girl at school's arm in hockey.
I think you've told me this.
She did have brittle bones.
Yeah.
That was my reaction, Nick.
But in my defence, again, she was a bit of a bitch. She didn't like me.
Can I just ask, what kind of mad school goes, I know, let's get the kid with brittle bones to go and play hockey. I was the captain of the school hockey team.
That was
and it
my
was
argument.
like murder ball. You just whack the crap out of each other with your stick. And it was like, oh, that stick's above your shoulder. Don't care, mate. I'm coming at you.
But it didn't help that I get a bit carried away when playing competitive sports.
I can believe that as well.
And I was swinging this hockey stick around my head. You're not allowed to do that in hockey. And I just went thwack across her arm. And she just looked at me and went, you broke my arm. I was like, well, you shouldn't be stood in my way then, should you? I also splashed another girl's face in the swimming gala because she was winning. And I thought, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Move out of my way, you whiny little bitch.
I'm confused as to why we're not talking a now Paralympian Lucy here.
Exactly.
Because, let's face it, that's the go-getting killer attitude of a Paralympian.
It is, isn't it? I think the problem is Lucy likes to win, but she doesn't like to put the work into exercise.
No.
So the answer is pick a sport that's new. Isn't it? Like, pick a new one and go, oh, that's the one for me.
I think the chips eating Olympics, Lucy could manage that.
Don't you think we should start up an Olympics that's the opposite, like a Paralympics for real people, where we do things like, competitive cake eating, competitive television watching, and say, oh, he's managing his 98th hour without sleep watching crap on Netflix, and it's like, that. So that's the Paralympics I not only would watch, but want to compete in.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. We're already off to a good start with this episode. Mick, we normally are straight off the bat ask people to introduce themselves and tell them a bit about you. So would you like to do that?
Yes. For anyone under the age of God knows what, I mean, God, it's getting so long now, it's ridiculous. So anyone under the age of about 35 probably have no idea who I am. But once upon a time,
we're not quite 35.
Oh well, that's good. That's made me feel much better because I'm getting a bit confused as to who used to watch me. Many years ago, I am a wheelchair user. I had cancer as a baby, so I've always been disabled. And was in a band, and I used to do music, and I wanted to be a pop star. And then I got spotted to do television and started doing TV in 1989. And for a while was kind of, I don't know, the previous generation's Adi Adepitan. In that everyone knew who I was, and I was always on telly, and I had spiky hair and leather outfits, and was all a bit punk rock.
That's very much how I remember you.
Yes. Yeah, and so I did that, and then I kind of got a bit old and a bit less popular, and television likes its new talent. So I retrained as an access consultant and went off and worked with businesses trying to get them to be more accessible, whether it's physically or systemically. Oh, that's the kind of talk I do in my office. And then by mistake, I got back into the arts, and so now I'm currently producing a show at the Barbican. So I don't know how that happened, but yeah, I have a very strange career because I did music, didn't want to be on telly, got spotted and got into telly, so I did that. That took off. Great, wonderful, superstar all over the world. One of my shows got syndicated all over the English-speaking world, so I was famous in America and Australia and Canada and New Zealand, which was nice. Couldn't get to any of them because I couldn't face the flight. But anyway, I don't like flying. So and then the show won an Emmy. I got a BAFTA nomination. I was voted Children's TV Presenter of the Year in 1992.
That's probably just around the time that me and Lucy would have been watching you as well.
We had a conversation about this last week, Mick, and we were like, can you remember what the name of the programme he was on is called? Neither me nor Alice could remember what the programme was called.
Well, I had a strange...
I'll be like, oh yeah, that was it.
It was called Beat That. And
Right.
it was on Channel 4, and it went... because I don't know if you know Andrew Miller, but Andrew Miller's another disabled presenter, and we basically presented kids' TV opposite each other. So basically, he'd do 6 weeks, then I'd do 6 weeks, and it was really weird. So Channel 4 was the first people to kind of have proper disabled people presenting kids' TV. And Beat That was on either before or after, I can never remember, I think it was after Pob, which was kind of the puppet that spat at the camera.
Oh, yeah.
He used to say, Pob.
Yeah, Pob. And then gobble over everywhere. And he looked a bit like Michael Gove.
Yes!
So,
he did. I can't unsee that now.
So, and what was weird was, because I used to go, I mean, I did kids' TV, but I was like heavily into music and clubbing, and I was DJing in all these clubs and stuff. And I'd go to these clubs, and then all these people would go, oh, yeah, I saw your programme. And I'd be like, why? It's Sunday morning. And then realise there's nothing else on.
No.
It was religion, politics, cooking, or me. And people in clubs, as I later discovered, are a little bit more awake on a Sunday due to some things they might have done.
Yes.
And so... that's why I had so many people who are much older than the target audience watching the program, which is why I had such a huge viewership, because all over the country and all over the world, punks and alternative people would be like, oh, it's Sunday morning, Mix on, brilliant. And there's something to watch while I can't sleep.
No, yeah.
So, yeah. And
this was back in the day where there was only 4 channels, so
you
really didn't have a lot of choice.
It was, yes, definitely no choice at all. And there wasn't the internet, and there wasn't even, I mean, without being funny, I used to make music on computers, and it was an Atari that didn't connect to anything. Like basically an old CRT screen in black and white, and you had to, before that, I used to work in a company as a an office manager, and I used to have to write the programs for my Amstrad to make it work.
Now you're showing your age, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I need to do a spreadsheet. I need to write a spreadsheet program. Oh,
God.
But yeah, it's. I mean, if the 10-year-old me could see what I have to watch on a Saturday morning, so I used to watch like stuff like Live and Kicking and all that kind of stuff. And then, but if they could see me now, if that 10-year-old could see me now watching like Saturday Kitchen, learning how to like saute some beef or whatever, or like make a custard, they'd be like, "What are you doing? Can you put children's television on?"
Do you know what's weird? Because like now you've got CBBC and all that, and so that's. But programs back then weren't really made for kids alone.
No,
they were made for everybody.
Yeah,
and the whole point of things like Beat That was, we'd get 4 disabled kids and 4 non-disabled kids, and they'd never met before. We'd put them all together, and they'd have to do something like, I don't know, feed a load of footballers, or run a fashion show.
Right.
Go to France was one where we all had to go on a boat. I've never been so sick in my life. And all different things like this. And it was sort of, it was a kids show, but it was also kind of, I mean, that's part of my job, was to make it less kids.
Yeah.
So I was mucking about and being like, all right, hey, adulty. And what was it? I was hired not to be a kids' TV presenter, but to resemble their naughty, annoying older brother who always stops them doing what they want to do. And I was like, yeah, I can manage that. So, and it's weird, like you said, Swap Shop. I mean, Tiz was.
Yeah.
Like those things, they were for kids, but let's face it, anyone, I mean, now I'd kill to watch Tiz was.
I know, me too.
To be honest, I'd probably kill to present Tiz was. It was my dream as a kid. One day I'd love to do that. Cover people in gunge Imagine all the pop stars you could go. And now, thanks for that interview. And there's only one thing left to do.
Cover you in. Yeah. I mean,
that would be amazing.
That's gunge is a very 90s thing, isn't it? Gunge on TV shows is very, very 90s.
You see, the problem is, what it was, is you're thinking about the gunge of the 90s, but I'm thinking more of the gunge of the 70s and the early 80s.
Yeah.
You see, and that's where it came from. Because Tiz was the first one to gunge anyone.
Yeah.
And I still have on VHS, because I'm that old, some footage of Mik Khan from 80s new romantic band Japan being gunged. And he was sitting there all togged up, and I don't think he had any idea what the program was, because that's not a Japan. They're far too busy being esoteric and arty. And he just was all in this. I mean, he'd got a Paul Smith suit on that must have been worth $1,000 in the 80s. He looked amazing.
Yeah.
And Sally James went, la. Anyway, thank you very much for the interview. And then they pied him and then covered him down.
Man,
and you could see his face was just like, what the fuck? No!
What are you doing?
Apparently, because my wife born and bred in Camden, so as a little girl, her dad had two apprentices that were in Madness, right? Madness Camden. So Chris and another one, I can't remember. She's always going to tell me off for not actually tell me a billion times. Anyway, they used to come round and have like Sunday lunch with Dad, and so like all the kids would be outside going, "Oh my God, Madness are in Diane's house! Hello!" And they went on Tisros and they were banned for enjoying it too much because they just went for, you're not meant to be the band gunging everybody else. And apparently they were told you're never coming back.
It sounds very Madness.
Really enjoyed it too much.
Yeah,
it was like,
very on brand for Madness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'd have thought they'd have come up with baggy trousers and filled them with guns. I mean, it's just begging to be done.
Yeah.
And that's why I never got to work in children's television for very long.
Because they took one look at you and they went, he'd enjoy this too much.
Because I said, when they called me into an office and they said, Mick, we've got this show we want you to present. We think you'd be brilliant. I went, all right, it's a kids' TV show. And I went, are you sure? Because I'm all leather and punk rock and I was singing in bands. And the show I did before was called Sex Talk, where I did an interview with a woman about who had thalidomide, who had a dildo on a stick. And I was like, so hang on a minute.
It's a change of direction.
That's a real change of gear. And they went, you'll be brilliant. And I went from there. I was working on that show. And then when that ended, I went to work on a poetry show on BBC for under 8s. I mean, at least that was for under 16s. But under 8s. And I was like, something's up with Simon. Simon's acting moony. Simon's acting strange. He's acting a little loony. And that was the kind of poetry I was doing. And it was like, this is flipping weird. And then the Daily Mail found out that I go to rock clubs and wear leather trousers and did a big expose on me not being the right kind of person to present children's television. So I went to work at the news department.
I did used to work for the BBC a long time ago. Yeah. And I had a colleague who would move from desk to desk, like program to program, once his contract was up. And he was known for just coming in the office one day and just sitting there and like making himself useful. So that they were like, "Oh yeah, we'll have you. We'll have you on the crew for a while." Which is, I mean, that's one way to do it, isn't it? Really, you're just sitting in a spinning chair for about 2 hours waiting for somebody to go, "You put the kettle on, please."
Yeah, I'm here. I'm available. I can promise you, Lucy, that was not me. I was known as being quite an annoying, troublesome TV presenter. But this is before there was such thing as like reasonable adjustment, and I was always being asked to do things, and you'd be like, "Yeah." And when I go home and I'm really hurt after doing this, you ain't going to give me a day's pay for sitting on the bed not being able to work, are you? So I was a little bit more, I'm not doing that than most. Although I was still known as the action cripple. Because they'd go, "Mick, will you just go and fly a thing or jump off a thing or do that or go swimming or scuba dive or water ski?" I'm like, "Yeah, all right."
I mean, that is something I hadn't even thought of, because back then, obviously, like you say, there was no reasonable adjustment. So it must have been a bit like a wing and a prayer almost. Like, yeah, we'll do this and see how this turns out.
It was funny because what they used to do was they'd say to me, they'd go, "Right, well, we'll pay you this much. And do you want to bring someone along that we'll pay. So all my mates used to love it because they'd get a day out with a film crew, about 150 quid, like loads of food, because you're always getting fed on set. I mean, this is the olden days when the camera person, the lead camera operator had an assistant, the sound person had
everybody
an assistant.
had an assistant.
The lighting team, there was about 5 of them, and a van filled with millions of pounds of the lights. You know, I mean, even the assistant had an assistant. Do you know what I mean? It was very much like that. So when a crew descended on your house, it was a bit like being invaded. Whereas now they turn up with like a camera they bought on eBay and flipping, and it's like one person does it all. So they just used to go, give them 150 quid and they bring a mate. So it meant that if I couldn't get in somewhere, my mate would help me get in. But by the time I worked at the BBC officially, they had a thing called an access department, which was kind of meant to be the answer. But I'm sure if Lucy used them, it wasn't always that great. I remember once going away to a film shoot in America, and the researcher brought her boyfriend, who was meant to be my support worker, and I never saw him. I was there for a week. I didn't even know he was there. He was just always carrying stuff for her and going on like dates in New York while I'm just stuck in this nightmarish hotel, because New York is not an accessible city. It wasn't anywhere in the 90s.
No.
So, yeah, I remember one night having a meal of popcorn that someone bought outside my room because everyone had forgot to invite me to dinner.
Oh, no, Mick! Oh, Mick! You sound like you need to be on an advert. Like,
it's terrible. You wouldn't believe that. Tell young people that. You tell young TV presenters that today, they won't believe you.
I mean, that's the thing. You sort of think about media in the sort of terms we're living in now, really, don't you? Because it's in front of you, but you can't. I kind of forget about the people who've gone before who had to do this with no like real support. Like you say, that the BBC Access team, God love them, make mountains out of molehills, and then when you actually got a problem, they're like, we don't know how to help you with this.
I won't say too much, but that is the best description.
There you go.
I mean, they don't exist anymore, do they? I thought they'd
No,
gone.
I don't think they do. But I can remember my first
back to access to work now, isn't it?
Yeah, I can remember my first day at work, and I was really nervous because it was my first job out of uni, and we'd already had a meeting before to assess like what I needed and any like adjustments to the desk height and all that kind of thing.
I know what's coming.
And they rang the production office and said, "Is Lucy there?" And the executive producer of the program I was working on went, "Yeah. Can you have a look at her wrists?" And he went, "What?" "Can you have a look at her wrists?" And he went, "What? Why?" And he goes, "Are they flat or are they raised? Because we might have to. I've just realised we haven't raised the desk, and she might be like get a crick in her wrist." Like, I was like, "No, I'm fine." She came down with about 4 people a week later and was like, "Yeah, we're going to sort this desk." I was like, "My wrists are fine. Leave my wrists. My wrists are absolutely fine."
I feel as though the person whose legs don't work, like worrying about your wrists, is the least of your fucking problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, to me, I got a job producing there for a short while, and they came to assess my access needs for reasonable adjustment, and they ended up going to access to work, I think, with a report, with a bill. It was about £68,000, and I was like, because what they'd said was that the parking at the donut. So back then, the parking for the plebs was down a hill, and then the celebrities could park in donut. And there was 4 blue badge bays, but they were always filled because I never turn up for work early. So it's against my religion. So and I said, well, so they were going, right, well, you need a power chair to get you up the hill. You need a new car with a hoist to get the chair in the car. And there was all this stuff. Oh, then you'll need to adapt your kitchen because your kitchen isn't adapted for a power chair. It's adapted for a manual. What? And I was just like, all I need is a parking space at the top of the hill. So in the end, I had to go to facilities to say, no, this is rubbish. Can I have a parking space?
Yeah.
So it took them 3 months to get this parking space, by which point I'd torn a muscle in my shoulder getting up the hill. So I resigned. But it does mean that I am one of the few people to have a gold BBC blue badge.
Wow.
It's one of my prized possessions because I never got to put it in my car window because by the time they gave me it, I was leaving.
That's classic sort of access to work and access sort of support stuff. Though I when I did my undergrad, I applied for disabled students allowance, and they were quite happy to give it to me. I didn't get any of my tech, or I got my support worker, but none of my tech or anything arrived until 2/3 of the way through my second year of my 3-year degree.
Joe, I did an OU course, and they were like, "Right, what do you want?" And I was like, "They're the other way around. I got a weird desk and another weird thing and a strange thing." That I was like, "What the hell do all these do?" And then they were like, "Right, do you want any support work?" And it was like, "It's the OU." Do you know what I mean? It's like it's mostly sat on my sofa, flicking my nose, watching a video. So, and then every now and again, when there was a requirement to go to a thing or do a day school or something, trying to get them to work out whether or not they could pay you. It's like, do you know what? Forget it. I'll just go on my own. I don't care. So it's funny because when I was young, you couldn't really go to university if you had any care needs at all, any support needs at all. They wouldn't have you. And I remember applying for all the London universities. I wanted to study fashion, man. I was in the 80s. I wanted to be a new romantic fashion designer. And they were like, yeah, no, we just don't have any facilities for a wheelchair user. Just go away. So then I was looking around and I thought, well, what can I do? So I found 2 universities accepted me, Keele and Durham. Now, I didn't bother in the end because they didn't do the course I wanted to do. I didn't realise until I worked at the BBC that you could do a degree in anything and that was all right. I thought you had to get a degree in what you wanted to do.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's exactly when I went to university. That's exactly what I thought.
I'll never forget working with someone that got a degree in religious studies, and I said, "But what's that got to do with news?" And they went, "Nothing. It's just a really easy degree to get."
Really?
And I was like, "Oh, okay." So
unless you want to be like a lawyer or a teacher or a social worker, go to uni to do the thing that you find interesting. Don't go to uni to do the thing you want to work in. It's not worth the grands and grands of debt.
It's like just get a nice degree. So say what's the one I think's easiest, right? And I'll do that. Come out with a first. Everyone will be impressed. I'll learn how to do a bit of research, and all that'll be fine. But yeah, so I didn't go to Keele and I didn't go to Durham, and then many years later, my wife studied physics. And so she went to Durham and said, "It's on a hill. It's basically university on a hill." So why would they say, "Oh, we'll have you," but it will mean that you'll have to just stay in your accommodation for 3 years, and we'll just have to throw lectures at
I was going to say, how are they going to deliver that? It's not like they could do it online. Just going to shout down the hill at you.
We've got a megaphone in a window, we'll be fine.
Yeah, that's it. It's like well, see, back then it would have been a tin can, a piece of string, and another tin can. And one of the other students would have had to hold it while I held the other end to my ear. I think I heard that. But then years later, I did a show at Keele University's end of year ball or something, and I was doing the Circus of Horrors. I was the compere, and I haven't got time to tell you the story. It is one of the funniest stories I tell, but it's it's full of anarchy and disaster. But there was a lot of blood and a lot of failure, and I also have never seen so much debauchery ever in my life, and I've seen some bloody good debauchery. but this party, like, if you send your kids to Keele about the end of the 90s, then you paid to send your kids to Sodom and Gomorrah. I have never seen such things going on, and I was just like, you're wheeling about, and you're like, well, I'm not going over there because that girl's having sex while being sick into a bucket.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a talent.
It was, yeah, and I was like, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is where we do sports degrees," and I was like, right, that makes sense." There you go. There's a good one. Sports. I'm a sports degree.
Oh, now you see. Well, I live in Loughborough.
Oh right, yes.
They take their sport really serious.
Isn't it like rugby in Loughborough? Rugby.
It's I mean, it's everything. It's where we've got, there's Olympic pools and Olympic. It's where Tanny Gray Thompson went to uni.
Adam Peaty swims, doesn't he? There, I think.
And Libby Clegg is round here. You
basically can't move for Paralympians.
You can't. They take it serious. I mean, what's the name?
Well,
Paula
of course
Radcliffe and stuff. They
Yeah,
take it
'cause it is
seriously
sports
around here.
science now. It's sports science now, isn't it? You see? So it's not just like, it's not PE.
No. Mind you, you say that. So I moved up from, my parents very inconsiderately decided to separate right in the years between the first year of my GCSEs and the second year of my GCSEs. So I got dragged from North London just at the point where I was starting to go, living in London's really cool. I can go to clubs. I can go shopping. This is exciting. I got brought to fucking Loughborough, which is basically, unless you're a university student, the population's like median age is 87.
Well, it's a bit like, to be fair, it is a bit like Lichfield. Lichfield, God love it, is a little bit like Cocoon.
Yeah. So when we moved up from North London, I moved and I was doing your standard GCSEs, and I was also doing French and history. But I moved to Loughborough, and because Loughborough is so sports centric, I had to drop either French or history because I had to do a GCSE in PE theory.
Oh, that is ridiculous! Stop it! That's just like that is so stupid. That is the most stupid thing I have ever heard in my life.
So the blind girl who they couldn't make accommodations for me to actually play basketball or anything like that. When they had basketball, it was me and another student who was a power wheelchair user, and they got one of those little plastic kiddie basketball hoops, and that was me and one other person. And I was like, but like it wasn't, you know, I'm 5'5". I should just walk up to it and put the ball in it. Like, I can
your PE
see that. That's fine.
Your PE lessons were sponsored by Fisher Price.
Yeah, so I had inaccessible actual PE lessons, and then I had to learn about muscle strain and how to do a C drop in trampolining.
Right.
I'm kind of mystified and very glad I'm old.
If it helps, I got an E in PE.
PE when I was at school was just what you did for about 3 or 4 hours a week, so that you were not going to be beat. So, well, no, so because the PE teachers were evil bastards. One of my PE teachers tried to get off of me. It was like, what the hell? So yes, I come from a very different era. You know, you've got to remember when I was at school, Gary Glitter was in the chart.
Oh yeah.
Jimmy Savile was on television. It's a weird time. So yeah, so that was an interesting moment where he picked me up from the bus stop, and then when we got into school, he reached over and tried to kiss me.
Oh no!
Hang on a minute. Can I just point out I've got taste? You've got a hairy back, mate.
Did you get?
If I was this way inclined, you wouldn't be it.
Did you get your caliber out and hit him in the ghoulies?
Ironically, though, my brother actually later on did actually beat him up for
there you
something
go.
else. But we were. It was a different punk, you see. It happened, and so school was a very different place because, of course, we'd gone from being very good children to suddenly being almost unmanageable.
Anarchy in the UK.
It was a bit. It was anarchy in the classroom in Luton. That's what it was. So yes, because you can all talk. I've had it tough. I've been Loughborough. Oh, look at me! Get out of it. I grew up in Luton, mate.
You see,
we had it tough.
And my physical education consisted of playing boccia or boccia. And also I can't throw very well. My aim is off. What they did was they went down the local builder's merchant, cut a drain pipe in half, and went in and used that. And I just rolled it down half a drain pipe.
Have you ever been bowling?
Yes.
Where they get one of them out for you? And you're like, what is this? What? So
it's for toddlers, isn't it? It's for very small children.
So what the point?
And disabled.
Yeah, no.
Because bowling balls are too heavy for me to lift because my arms are weak. I go. Can you put that on the ramp, please?
Could you just put that on there for me?
Yeah. Can you just do that for
me?
And can you push it? Can I watch it? So, Mick, you said that after you sort of left the world of television presenting, you went into you trained as a access consultant. Is that right?
Yeah, access. Yeah.
That's the actual term.
But yes.
And was that something that you did because you were interested in it, or was it because you were like, I've got
Right.
nothing else to do?
Because I used to do a lot of clubbing, and clubs back then were not very accessible at all. I used to get asked, so I was asked basically to help Ministry of Sound when it opened,
Right.
to be accessible. So, you know, they'd done quite a bit, but they'd made a few mistakes. So the toilet doors they'd got an accessible loo in both the men's and the women's, but the doors were wrong. So we got that changed. We created a zone where the lights didn't go, because I had a friend that was a real raver, but was also light sensitive epileptic. So it's like, whoa, bad. So I basically designed her corner in the club, and we did all different things, and we leveled things, and we made the bar so it was easy to get to, and we trained the staff and all this. And then I did the Camden Palace, and I did and I was doing all this stuff, and then I got asked to join what used to be called the London Access Forum. And it was a thing run by the mayor when it was Ken Livingstone to get disabled people to sort of, they'd go, look, we're thinking of building this thing. What do you think? And then we'd go, oh, that's not accessible. That needs changing. And all stuff like that. And there was all these kind of like experts. And I was sort of expert in my field of like kind of entertainment and stuff like that. But then Ken Livingstone said, we think there's not enough, because back then especially, the entire industry of consultants were filled with non-disabled people telling everyone what we wanted. Yeah. And Ken thought this was bad. So he created a fund and paid for us all to go and study on this big, long course. And the idea was that all the members of the Access Forum were trained up to a level that meant that we could talk to architects on a level playing field. And we could go professional if we want, or we could remain voluntary as part of the forum. And being a money-grabbing type, when I heard how much they got paid, I thought, oh, I think I'll become a consultant. So I did. And it's funny, I go around the country and I find things that I worked on and kind of go, oh, I completely forgot I did that. I was walking through Catford recently with a friend of mine, and I suddenly went, oh, heck, I helped design that school.
Really?
I completely forgotten. And there's a huge office development just off Tottenham Court Road. My wife and I were just wandering about during lockdown, and I was like, oh, I worked on this project. And then I was walking around going, and I did that, and I designed that, and it was like, this is really weird, because I've completely forgotten, because I've done so much.
Yeah. You need to start campaigning to call them the Mik Scarlet building and stuff like that.
I do. If anyone's ever seen, if anyone's seen Futurama, when Bender builds a giant statue of himself, going, remember me. That's what I want. That's my final project. So then I worked on the Paralympics, and the senior boss of that, the late Margaret Hickey, she was fantastic, and you never crossed Margaret. She was brilliant. She went to work at Network Rail and said to me, well, we're about to start training all of our staff. You're good at talking to people. You know about what we're going to tell them. Do you want to come and help us train our staff? So I said, yeah, all right. So I then became an equality trainer, bizarrely. And I do a lot more of that now, because I found that when I first started doing access consultancy, people really listened. But then they started working out, hang on a minute, we don't really need to do all this, because no one's going to be able to sue us. And so then gradually the reports you'd do got less and less noticed. Yeah. Until you were like, and then all you got really was you were hired, really, so they could say they'd hired you.
So you became
and I was like, I'm not
box.
having, yeah, I'm not having that. I'm not having my name. There's a couple of projects that have been built, especially in Camden, that I was the access advisor on, and they wouldn't pay me as a consultant because my money was too much. So I had to lessen my name. Yeah. But that I advised on, but then they didn't follow anything of what I said. And it's like, well, my name's on that, but they're not, oh, well, we don't need to do that because it's too expensive, and that'd be difficult, and let's change that, and let's move that over there. And it's like, and I won't even mention the fact that, most councils don't take any notice of anything about access when they're in planning. So, it's a real soul-destroying job. So I thought, well, if I can't get them to understand, I'll teach. So if you know what it is, if you can't do it, teach. Yeah. So I got into training, and then I got into lecturing. So now I lecture the next generation of architects and interior designers, whether commercial or industrial, about getting things to be accessible. So, and yeah, that's quite fun. It's quite shocking, some of the things you hear people say, and you're like, do you really think that? But luckily, I have the ability to bring people on board. The other day, I did a kind of group discussion around low traffic neighborhoods and how to make London a car-free city by 2030. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And lots of people were very much in favor of all this. And I was trying to say, why it might negatively impact on disabled people. And I managed to get everyone to agree with me by the end. I thought, well, that's a skill that I didn't know I had.
I mean, that's amazing.
Making cyclists agree with someone that likes cars.
Do you find, Mik, that you occasionally get some pushback to what you're saying? Because obviously you...
Oh, God, yeah. No, I mean...
Right, do they feel like they need to argue the toss with you just because they can? Like, no, you're wrong. And you're thinking, no, I'm not wrong because I'm the one who's experienced this.
Depending on what you're talking about, depends on how they argue. So one of the big ones is if you say to someone, let's make this building super duper accessible, what tends to happen is, oh, it's going to cost a lot of money. Yeah. And I don't know. Will we get many of your types? And all this kind of, we don't get many of your lot around here kind of thing. That's a normal one. And what's weird is you'd expect it from a little project. But when you're talking about, massive, huge redevelopments and they're still going, oh, it's a bit expensive. You think, well, you're spending fortunes on, paintings for the lobby. Why haven't you got an extra toilet? But having said that, I'm working on a project at the minute in Sheffield and they're amazing. Really? There's a project, they're putting in 4 changing places toilets, 2 for the public and 2 for staff.
Amazing.
In this office development.
Wow.
Right, that's going to have a public plaza where there's going to be coffee and restaurants and people can hang out. There's multiple normal accessible toilets and there's all these changing places toilets. They're doing all the buildings so they've all got like using color as a way of finding your way around. There's all stuff that's part of my job, that's stuff that's really subtle because most people go, oh well, access is just wheelchair users, isn't it, and visually impaired people. It's like, no, there's loads of other people that need access requirements that you can do and do it in a creative way that makes it really pretty. And they're really on board. So I'm feeling a little more happy around that career at the moment because of the fact that I've met a load of people that are like, yeah, let's do it the best. Let's make it brilliant. Yeah. But normally they don't do that. When you're talking about systemic stuff, then kind of you get people kind of go, but that's not how we do it. And if we do it for them, don't we have to do it for everybody? And it's like, no, because that's not what reasonable adjustment means. No. It's not, or if you can work from home, then everyone has to work from home. Great, brilliant. If that's your policy, brilliant. But I have a legal requirement to ask to work from home if I have to. Whereas someone else that doesn't have that requirement, it would be a favor, it would be a perk. And it's this idea that, that you get from line managers normally going, but if we give you that thing, then everyone will want it. It's like, no, it's leveling the playing field up. Yeah. It's not giving me presents.
No, it's not a nice thing to do where they've got made like a big fuss of you at like.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you've got a special desk that goes up and down. Everyone will want a special desk that goes up and down. And it's like, yeah, but that's because everyone can just get into their normal desk.
Yeah,
and I can't. It's not. But so I mean, that was the argument around the parking space. Yeah, was at the BBC was the fact that that's where all the celebrities park, and I was like, well, can't they just have one less so I can have a blue badge plate? And it took me 3 months to negotiate that was something that would happen, and it only happened because we created a new special VIP parking space right outside the stage door. Oh, okay. And so everyone then started fighting over who got that space.
Rather than
so
I
don't want that crappy blue badge space. Sod that. I want the VIP.
I want the VIP that's roped off, my car's covered over.
So basically it was like getting a dog that are fighting over a bone and then getting a much bigger bone and going, come on. So, but yeah, I mean, you always get it, and you get people that don't understand it, and you get people that don't agree with it. I mean, this whole kind of, woke thing, I go in and say, this is why you use a certain term. And they're like, oh, I don't agree. I don't think there's anything wrong with handicapped. It's like, well, I don't care what you think. I'm telling you, 1, what I think, and I'm the teacher. But 2, I'm telling you what your company has told me to tell you. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So you might, and I'll tell you this now, if you call someone outside handicapped, if you go up to someone that you're serving and go, hello little handicapped person, they will really kick off because they won't bite. Like it. Yes. So the fact that you don't see why it matters doesn't matter.
That's the thing that I'm always saying to people is that, like, I work with people sometimes who have issues with their mental health or cognitive differences that mean sometimes that their version of reality is different from our version of reality. So and the work that we do is that we are there to support and represent a person to voice their thoughts and feelings about their version of reality. So if, as far as they are concerned, the sky is pink, our job is to sit there and say, no, I'm sorry, but Mary says the sky's pink, and you have to listen to her when she says that. That's her. That's the way things are for her. And if we're talking about doing an assessment of what Mary's needs are, what Mary's wishes and feelings are about care planning or whatever, then you have to pay attention to Mary's opinion of the fact that the sky is pink. Even,
do you know what I love?
Exactly.
Does it make any difference to you?
Exactly.
If the sky, if you look out and go, what a lovely blue sky, and Mary turns to you and goes, but it's pink.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, so does it hurt me that you think it's pink? No, not really.
No.
So great.
No.
You love the pink sky, I love the blue sky. It's a beautiful sky.
Exactly.
Right? And what's really, I mean, I always love the fact that the Greeks didn't have a word for blue. They used to call the sky golden. It was different colours of gold because the sun shone on the sky. And so it was just, so it's this is the thing, is that it's all relative. If we suddenly started calling the sky pink, then she's right.
Well, and it's and because, you know, when you're talking about people's sort of identification of themselves and their community, it's none of our fucking business. If it doesn't impact you, like why does it matter if somebody that I have spent my whole life being under the impression that person was a male, if they come up to me and say, actually, I'm a woman, what fucking difference does it make to me?
No, but it's
not my body.
I've never understood any of this, and it's why training can be so weird, because you sit there and you're telling them this stuff, and it's like, and you get all these kind of, some people get it, some people just trying to go, well, I don't get it, but I'll do it, and then you get the people that just argue, and you're like, it doesn't matter. Oh, it's all woke political correctness. And you're like, well, political correctness just means being nice to people.
Yes.
And woke just means not being asleep.
Yes.
Right? So basically you've just said, well, I prefer my life to be completely shit. I don't care about anyone, and I don't ever want to learn anything or think about anything new.
I'm just kind of close my eyes to it and put my fingers in my ears and la 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 la. I'm not, but it's like when people say to me, like, or people have often in the past referred to me as a person with a disability, and I'll go, well, actually, I use the term disabled person because there is no hiding away from this wheelchair. Do you know what I mean? You can't. I haven't got a cloak of invisibility. Let's just call it what it is and crack on, shall we? And they're like, oh no, but I see the person before the disability, and I'm like, just shut up and get on.
See, now here, hello and welcome to Mik's training. See, I subscribe to the social model of disability that says that disability is a state that is put upon people who are different, right? Because they do not conform to the normal way of thinking or being. So you're a wheelchair user. Yeah. In a world where we were all wheelchair users, walking would be the disability. Right, would be the impairment, be the thing that would make. So all of our world would have much lower ceilings. There'd be no stairs, right? It would be a very different planet. Anyone that's ever watched the kids' TV show Charlton and the Wheelies will see this. It is the embodiment of what I teach, right? Because basically everyone in that is on wheels, right? And then suddenly a dragon turns up who walks. So you can't get in anywhere because he's too tall.
That sounds nice, to be fair.
So this is the kind of stuff I grew up in the 70s, which is why I really got the social model. But so basically, if you're with a disability, then that means it's about you. Whereas I believe that my lack of being able to do things is placed upon me. I don't think not walking or seeing or something is something that stops you doing stuff. No. It only stops you doing stuff the way people who do the thing that way does. So, you know, if I can't walk and you can, then you think I'm disabled because I can't walk. Well, I think you're disabled because you do. Yeah. Because, you know, if I lived in a world like that idea that if the world was designed for me, you'd be disabled. So so visual impairment is a perfect example, right? we live in a world where everything's visual. But if we took away all that stuff, if we all went and lived in a cave, for example, suddenly all the sight would be unimportant, and you'd be getting around using different methods.
It's somebody on one of the like blind person groups that I'm on, where they put us all in a corner and we're allowed to talk about not being able to see.
Yeah.
Somebody said something on there the other day that sort of made me go, of course, like they pointed out that nobody can see everything. Like humans cannot see 365 degrees.
It would be really useful though if we could, to be fair.
But it's that kind of, so actually, like when you've got limited vision, like you're not, you could never see everything. So there's no world. The world that we live in is not a world that exists where it's been built for people who can see everything. It's been built for people who have got the sort of standard, specific, usual level of vision, the average level of vision. And actually the thing to sort of, the way to think about it is to go, well, what, if we were to try and level the playing field, make things accessible, it's thinking about the other ways that people see.
And exactly, that's what I teach. I basically teach people to think, what other ways are there of doing things? Because if you build this inclusive world, you have a system where you have stuff for people that see, and then you design another way of doing it for people that can't, and then you have another way of doing it for people that can hear, and another way that people can't, and then you have stairs and a lift and a ramp and stair, and once you start thinking like that, you suddenly realize, well, actually, that really benefits
everybody.
People who have an impairment that makes them blind or paralyzed or deaf or whatever. But then there's also the people that get old. There are people that, like my next door neighbour, not anymore, he doesn't, but he used to go tombstoning, so jumping off cliffs into water. Okay. And one day he jumped off into a cliff and there wasn't as much water below him as he thought, and he broke, and his legs kind of went. Right, so he spent about 3 years in a wheelchair, right, getting back to walking, and all he went was, oh my God, it's awful, blah, blah. And then eventually he got walking, and now he's riding his bike again and showing off with his fully working legs. And
don't worry, Mick, it'll be a matter of time before he throws himself or something else.
No, his wife won't let him. You have no idea the trouble that this bloke got into with his wife. Yeah, because it's not like he had an accident or something. He jumped off a cliff.
Yeah, like he's not like somebody. He lost his balance and fell in, is it? Like he decided, I'm going to jump off that.
He's a builder, so there was many ways he could have done it at work and got away with it. But instead he jumped. He went, ha ha, wee, splat, bugger. So it's his own fault. But that's the thing, is it's building a world that means that you can change. You can get. I mean, for example, a world that works for like Lucy and me works for you if you've got kids.
Yeah.
Because an accessible world for us means you can push kids around. Little kids don't have to walk so far; they can walk up a ramps easier than walking up steps. And that's the thing, and that's what I teach, and that's what I say to people. Look, if we can do this, we can build an inclusive world that means that the next generation of disabled kids, whatever their impairment or disability, whichever word you want to choose, is that they can grow up with exactly the same experience and abilities and chance to fulfill their potential as anyone else. And I hear you going to university, and I think that's wonderful because I couldn't, but still you faced barriers that you want to get rid of, and eventually we can do this. And I think and so then when people go, oh, I don't know, it's PC and a bit woke, I'm like, you twat, don't it's going to happen to you one day. And in my world, you'll get old, or you'll have an accident or an illness, and there'll be no big deal. In the world that I would have designed, we would have not had anywhere near as much hassle around COVID as we did, because the world would be designed so that everyone can work from home instantly, that everyone, that people can have this sudden change in the way things happen without it being such a massive spasm for society, because that's what inclusion is. It's not thinking this is how we do it and any other way is wrong. It's thinking, how many ways can we do something so that the end result is what we want? And I think that's, kind of, and there you go. And what I love is both Alice and myself have switched into work during this bit of the radio. It's great. It's great. Like, so, well, when you see the juxtaposition of the current situations around actors and inclusion,
under the Equality Act.
Protected characteristics.
I actually had to use that phrase not 4 hours ago to talk about protected characteristics. Yes, I did.
I always say, Mick, that disability will happen to everybody someday to a certain extent. And Alice always says that I sound like a mafia boss. Because it's like, I'm going to be after you.
No, so what Lucy says is disability could happen to anyone at any time, which I think makes her sound like a mafia boss. What I say is the thing is with the aging population is your options are either you get old and become disabled or you're dead.
Yes, which of course is the ultimate disability. And I think we should embrace the dead, because if we do that, then we are the biggest population in any society, and we should be digging everybody up and helping them to live the full life that they now can lead as a dead person.
That is political correctness gone wrong.
I'm a big fan of getting anyone to join. The amount of people I meet and they go, "So is this am I disabled?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think you are." And they're like, "Ooh."
Join the club.
Every time I do any training, I'm like, "Yeah, come on, join.
Come over to the dark side."
Like we're a cult, one of us. Yeah.
It's like all the hoo-ha about the James Bond. Well, they always have disabled people and people that are deformed and facial scars. You've got to be baddie. I've always wanted to be a Bond villain, but what I wanted to be is sort of James. For some reason, all the beautiful actors and models are disappearing. You must go and look into it. It appears that they've all been taken to an island somewhere. And then he arrives on the island and he gets out of his little scuba machine and he comes up. And then suddenly he notices that all the models now have got scars, or they've got a leg missing, or they're in a wheelchair. And he's like, "What's going on?" And then finally he finds Scarlett with his beautiful, high-kicking karate expert team of beautiful women around him, who are also all obviously disabled in some way. And the answer is to maim the world. Yes, Mr. Bond. My plan is to create the perfect race by making everyone imperfect. And then I'll strap him to a table and he'll go, "What, you're going to kill me?" And I go, "No, Mr. Bond, I'm going to paralyze you." And then just stick something in his spine and go, "There you go. And I didn't tell you my plan, and I didn't fuck it up, and now you're one of us because I'm not a twat. Thank you." And from then on, James Bond is in a wheelchair, and that's your answer.
I do think that is a good standalone movie. Never mind a James Bond film.
You see, I'm now just trying to think of what Lucy's Bond girl name would be.
Ooh.
Yeah, isn't it like a? Isn't it like
what? Not Lucy Lasting.
I was going to say
I know that. As soon as I said that, I thought that's the kind of bloody joke. I bet you've had your whole. Like I've always had Metal Mickey.
Or Lucy Goosey is another one.
Oh god, no, I wouldn't have done that. That's still got a sexy. That's got a sort of Lucy Goosey.
There's got to be some kind of terrible wheelchair related pun that sounds a little bit like a sex position.
But of course, there is really sexy. Of course, we've all had that. That was the first article I ever had published about me in News of the World. Mik Scarlet is really sexy. New TV presenter is really sexy. And it was all about how sexy and wonderful, someone to watch out for because he's such a cutie. And then the next article I had in the newspaper was, he's the wrong guy for BBC for kids television because he wears leather trousers. And the article before was, Mik Scarlett's very sexy because he wears leather trousers. And I was like, yeah, I can't win. The media is weird.
Yeah, the media is weird, to be fair.
It is, especially about disabled people that are sexy.
With the media that we've sort of, from talking to Mick and some of the other people we've had on, is that it's not just what they show disabled people, but like behind the scenes as well. Yeah. It's just as restrictive and exclusive, but
it's one of the things. What's sad is because when I used to work at the Beeb and I went to news, I worked as part of the communities programs unit, and they had a disability programs unit that was specifically disabled people making shows about disability. So it would be, we had a magazine show called From the Edge. We had a documentary series that was called Over the Edge. And then we also advised all the news and everybody on what to do and how to cover it. And there was a big manual called The Producer's Guide to Disability that would say things like camera angles, language to use, stories, and how to make an empowering story. And we'd spent years on this. And it was like a Bible of how to get it right. And you started to see the change. So rather than go, brave Lucy, it would be, Lucy has achieved this thing. And it was just that different in language. Yeah. It was great. And then they disbanded the department, And then I went back about 5 years later, and the whole document had gone. And then you start seeing, people with disabilities, brave, inspirational, tragic, all that kind of come back. And it's like, well, this is the problem, because, if you don't remember your own history and you don't actually push forward, this is why the media drives me up the wall. Because, there was 1989 on a primetime television show on ITV. That's my first show, presenting opposite people like Toya Wilcox and, famous people. I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. Right? You shouldn't be in 2021 and still think, right, how many disabled people are there on primetime?
No.
Exactly. And what they've done is they've allowed the public to forget the history because they don't want to remind them. Both Andrew Miller and myself went to Channel 4 last year because it was the 30th year of both of our series starting. And we said, well, why don't you do a season or just even a documentary about the fact that these shows were groundbreaking and show bits of it, and then you can follow us now and it'd be really fun. And they were like, oh, we don't do anything about the past. We don't want to talk about the past. And then all of a sudden they've had a whole season of shows that they used to have on. And it was like, what you mean is you don't want to admit that the Paralympics were not the beginning of disability television in this country. 2012 is not the day it started.
No, that's the thing, isn't it? And it started with, they want you to think that, it started with the superhuman movement, which, again, is another term that
that drives you up the ball. Yeah. It's so funny because
she's sitting in a pub drinking a pint. She's a superhuman.
The stupid thing is the Paralympians. I mean, as we know from the conversation about Loughborough, it's not mucking about here. There's proper effort involved. They don't just sit on the sofa scratching their ass and go, "I think I'll go and win a gold." Gold. It's your turn this week. Have a gold. It's proper job. It's proper sport. And yet, by saying they're superhuman, what you're actually saying is well, that's natural, then, isn't it? There's no effort because that's what superhumans are. They're people that can do it
I think Paralympians are as superhuman as Olympians.
Yes.
But both of them are not superhuman. No, both of them are. It's like if you learn to play piano, if you spend hours every day playing piano, you will be a brilliant pianist. But you're not superhuman in that you've actually put the effort in. There will always be. I mean, like Usain Bolt. I love it. People always go, "Oh, Usain Bolt, he's amazing." He's about 6'9" tall. His legs are longer than most people's.
Exactly. That's why he can run fast, because he's got long legs.
It's like whenever you watch him in a race, you think, well, it's kind of unfair, really, isn't it? Because let's face it, everybody else's stride is about half a meter shorter than yours. So 5 steps, you've gone 2 meters.
He's been practicing and running, as you say. He's not been sitting on his ass watching daytime TV and eating chips. He's, even if with the height that he is. He could just, without putting the work in, he'd just waddle along with everybody else.
just with longer strides. His waddle would be longer. And he's racing for the cake. and yet again,
but he's out of breath.
Usain has won the cake because of his leg stride. However, of course, the weight that he's gained has now meant his legs have buckled.
He's got to have a sit down.
I can always remember somebody interviewed Usain Bolt after he'd won a race. I can't remember. I think it might have been at 2012. And they said to him, "What were you thinking about as you crossed the finish line?" And he said, "Whether or not I want to order some chicken McNuggets after this race." And I was like...
And he did that because his manager had said, "By the way, we're really looking for a new McDonald's sponsorship."
Exactly.
So when you finished... so when I finished, I thought...
Yeah, he's obviously like, I've got this under control, because he's left them for dust. I might as well start thinking about what I want for my tea, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? I just thought it was quite funny.
I've had interviews like that where I'm talking to someone and suddenly my mind's like, what am I going to make something?
Yeah.
And then they're talking... Normally politicians, we won't go into that. And you're like, oh, God. Could you just answer the question? But I think that there is we've got to get control of it, and that's why we need people like Lucy. And I think that this is why things like this are so important, because we have sidestepped the mainstream media and said, right, and I don't like using the mainstream media term because it sounds like the kind of thing Farage would say, but it's sort of the things that would never let us on board. We're now going, all right, then sod you, we'll do it some other way. And what will eventually happen is that they'll come on board and go, oh, we've missed out on this. We'll get you on radio.
They'll
we'll
realise that they can make some fucking money off of us. That's what matters to most people.
And if all else fails, we'll promote. I mean, when I do Disability Horizons TV, that is still looking for talent. So there you go, girls. Maybe go to them and say, shall we do a video show on the opposite Sunday to Mik and all his old farts do the men's
we
chat,
can do a young ladies thing because we're
and you can come on our show and it's like your version of Loose Women and we're like old men, and then we can all do that swapping where you come in and I'll come on and talk about hair dye.
Don't you dare start calling me Janet Street Porter.
I used to work for Janet. Anyway, so there you go. Yes, yeah. No. Anyway, but I think that that's what we're doing, and I think that's, to me, that's what's happening all over the place. I mean, he says getting his plug in, although it's a bit late because this program goes out after it. I'm working on a show at the Barbican at the minute, but is all disabled creatives. It's totally disabled led. Jamie Hale, the fantastic poet and actor, writer, producer, director, is wonderful. They're wonderful, and they are creating the show. They put it together, and we've got this huge load of disabled talent, actors, singers, artists, poets. It's going to be amazing. Well, too late, folks. It's already happened, but it was amazing. And it is available online, I think. Maybe you might catch it just on the Barbican website and it will be available elsewhere later. But we're taking this thing. I mean, I'm producing it and we're taking it. We can't get like the chance to show what we can do, nor, through most routes. So what the Barbican have done is they said to Jamie, put on this showcase, show what's out there, and we'll give you this great theatre space in a famous theatre to show it. So there are some people going, let's promote this, but still it's very disabled led, and I think that's the only way to do it, because it means we get the language right, we understand access. There's this wonderful new thing called an access rider. Like rock bands have riders, like access rider, and it means you go everywhere and you've just got your access requirements written out, you plonk it on the desk and go, there you go, that's what I want, and that's what people have to give you. And it's like brill, and then you can talk how you do it. But and it's all stuff like this that's coming on, creative access, so that subtitles, audio description, all that stuff is embedded. It's not a bolt-on a Wednesday night matinee. It's every single performance has this in. I've got friends that are starting at some really major theatre companies that are disabled that are going to be doing this, that are going to say, well, don't do like a special relaxed performance on a Wednesday. Do make it all more relaxed, make it all accessible, and make it so that the access is part of the show. And then that way it's not a big deal. That way you're not,
I think as well, non-disabled people, if like theatre companies started saying all of our performances are relaxed, or more, at least more relaxed, you know what I mean? I think non-disabled people to start off with would be like, this is different, I don't think I like it, but they would soon get used to it. It's like anything, you get used to anything, don't you, really?
We all got used to working from home and not cutting our hair, so...
I was all right on that account, because I've always cut my own hair. As I've always seemed to bring out the worst in hairdressers. I once had, just before I started TV, I got my first TV gig, and I went to a hairdresser and I said, I'm doing TV on Monday, and they started cutting my hair, and I said, what have you done? Because they cut it too short, and instead of cutting and finishing it, they went burst into tears and ran out.
I mean.
Oh dear. So I then had to go to. Luckily, next door to the hairdressers was a hairdresser's equipment shop, and I bought a set of clippers, some hairdressing scissors, and some peroxide, and went home and did all myself. And every now and again I go, I've got some money now, I might go to a hairdresser's, and every time I come out looking like a clown, or someone's had a go at it with a lawnmower or something. I remember going to one once, and my hair's not thick, and he thinned it with this razor thing, and I came out looking like someone had like rats had eaten my hair. It had all gone, so I had to shave it all off, and it was like, Jesus. No. So and the other thing I like about that is when you cut your own hair, if it's crap, it didn't cost you 50
Well, no, there is this, isn't there? There is this.
Do you know what I mean? You're like, hey, it's shit.
My only caveat to that is that I definitely cut my own hair during lockdown, and it's perhaps not the best idea for the girl who can't see straight.
No, I was
I was going to say there are some people I would say would be exempt from the home cutting thing, but I'd have just gone with the growth thing and just gone.
Did you get Dave to help you, Alice?
No.
You didn't?
No,
My God.
Well, I love my husband very much, but he's not known for having a thick, luxurious head of hair. And I sort of felt as though I'd trust myself to give myself a wonky cut more than I trust him to not just rage cut all my hair off and be like, now you know what it's like. We do, as every, I'm sure you know, Mik, as every happily married couple does, we do occasionally play that game where you go, would you still love me if? And so I do sometimes go, would you still love me if I was bald? And he's sort of...
I can't be bald because where I've fallen out of my wheelchair and injured myself, I've got scars on my head, lumps on my head, and basically I have an egg-shaped head anyway, so I would just look weird.
Mostly that game deteriorates into me threatening to leave him, take the dogs and leave him with the cat. And he's like, no,
those dogs are your guide dogs. like
yeah, but he definitely.
I'm going to leave. I'm going to take the dog.
Fine.
Well, yes, I think that's probably a good idea. I'm sure it's yours. That would be a kind of bastard, wouldn't it? We're splitting up. Well, I'm keeping the dog, but it's my guide dog. I don't care.
I mean, we've had I've had Lola for 9 years, and I've had Dora for coming up to a couple of months, and I'm pretty sure they both prefer him over me anyway. So
I've always said that what visually impaired people need is guide lions.
Lions,
because I think that would recreate the power system in society.
They'd eat you out of house and home, wouldn't you? Really?
Yeah, but that's all right because they just eat people
It'd
you
be
didn't
like
like.
Tiger and came to tea all over again, like real life Tiger and came to tea.
I was part of the team that got the first guide horse.
I was going to say,
okay, to go on TFL.
Really?
And it was great because they were going, "Oh, can we do it?" And it's like, "Yeah, no, you legally have to do it." Oh, okay, well, fine. So then, of course, they got the little pony and got him on the trains and everything, and it was just like, "This is the coolest thing ever." And then I was thinking, what can we do? And that's where the guide lion came up. Because I just think, you get all these people kind of not letting people in the cars because you've got a dog. It's like, look, mate, I'm coming in your taxi, or I'm letting them off the lead. It's up to you. But aren't they dangerous? They're more dangerous if they're not on the lead. Right? They're trained, they're well fed. But if I let them off the lead, they're a lion.
Right, Mik, before we let you go,
yes,
is there anything you would like?
Do you want to talk about?
Anything else? Anything you would like to
plug,
or where we can find you online and that kind of stuff?
Like I said, the cryptic thing I was going to plug will be done by the time this goes out. So, but look out for future cryptic arts events, folks. And if you are a disabled artist, get in touch, especially if you are from an underrepresented group or you have extra barriers, because we're very keen, to promote people that really do have a hard time getting into the arts. We want you. Other than that, I have the most empty diary I've had since lockdown started after November the 22nd. So when this goes out, I am available and ready to be hired at very reasonable rates for any job that you want, from voiceovers to presenting to access consultancy and advisory, and generally being a gobby git, but that's about it. Probably don't talk to me about hands. I am also available as a hairdresser, but as long as you only want a short, spiky haircut, because that's the only one I can do.
Where can people find you online, Mik, if they want to?
I am. It's mikscarlet.com online. Then there's mikscarletaccess.co.uk if you want me for a sensible job where I wear a suit and don't talk as much bollocks as I have today. Then of course there's Twitter, so at Mik Scarlet. And remember, folks, when I say Mik Scarlet, it's M-I-K, because I'm from the terrible 80s where we all thought it was trendy to drop the letter C. So we had Nick Kershaw, Rick Mail, and Mik Scarlet. Yes. And I'm on Instagram, but I think that's just at Mik Scarlet as well, although I'm really rubbish at Instagram. It's just selfies and rubbish. And then Facebook is Facebook. There's one.
We will put all the links to the stuff you've just said on the.
I'm not on TikTok.
No, I'm not on TikTok
wrong.
either.
I'm the wrong age for that. I don't understand it.
Mick,
I don't get
we're
it.
too old for TikTok, so don't worry.
No.
Oh, I see. So you're too old for it. So I'm so ancient. Well, Mick will never get it. But you know what?
I will just remind you that me and Lucy used to watch you on TV when we were children.
I know. Do you know what? It's very sweet. And the really scary bit was I had all these kids that used to be fans of me, and they go, "Oh yeah, Mik Scarlett, hello," and I'd have to sign all these posters and stuff and send them out. And then I started meeting people, and they were like teenagers. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, God, I used to watch you." Then I'd meet people, and they were kind of like in their 20s, and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting old." Then they'd meet people and go, "Look, this is the man I told you about." For their kid, this is I used to, when I was your age, I'd watch him on telly, and these kids would look up and go, "What?" Right? And now I meet people, and not only like you that are grown ups, but now I meet people whose kids went, "Oh yeah, my mum used to watch you on telly." And I'm like, "Oh shit." And now they're going to their kids, "Yeah, Granny used to watch him on telly when she was a little girl." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm so old."
At least you're well remembered if generations on, people are still talking about you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the only people that don't remember me are the media. Everyone go in the media, they go, "Did you used to do television?" It's like the world loves me, but the people in telly don't.
The people that write the checks, they don't give a shit.
That's it. The people that could continue with me being on television, you know. I mean, let's face it. Now I tick 2 boxes. Not only am I disabled, but I'm old. I'm 56 now. I'm a proper old person. It's great. I can go on a saga holiday. I can buy a house by the seaside at a discounted rate.
Mick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been so much fun, Mick. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been great. And now I can't wait to see what I said about my wife and how much trouble I get in when I actually find out what I've said. I'm sure I've said at least 2 things that means she's going to kick me in the bollocks.
I hope you've hidden your calipers.
Yeah, that's it. I gave them to a bloody fashion designer years ago, and he never gave me them back. I'd got my little caliper and everything, and he gave it to a model, and I never saw it again. Oh well, those fashion designers, they're all a bit weird.
Thank you for joining us.
It's been brilliant.
Right.
Thank you, Mick.
Stop talking, Mick. Shut the fuck up. We want to go.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the lABLEd podcast. If you like the show, please rate, review and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at lABLEd podcast.
Our thanks go to our editor Adam Hall, our music composer Maisie Crunden, and our graphic designer Sarah Coley.
We'll see you next time.